My dad neglected me for his narcissistic wife who wants to get rid of me. Now that they have a son, they want me to move out. My dad and my mom separated a long time ago because my mom messed around a lot with substances. Her pregnancy was very high risk because she found it really hard to quit smoking and drinking. My dad made her quit cold turkey, but he would always find her with a drink in hand. I didn't suffer a lot for it, but it definitely messed me up. When my mom gave birth, my dad went through with a divorce and got full custody of me. Since it was just us for a long time, I got very used to his presence and being the only girl in his life. He was a very busy man, but he always made time to watch movies with me, take me on vacation out of state. We even went to Disney World once. It was amazing with it just being the two of us. But then Nina came into the picture. Nina was my dad's wife whom he married 5 years ago. I'll admit I didn't like her. She stole my dad away all the time. She would constantly want to go on dates with him, so I had to stay with a babysitter or by myself when I got older. It got really lonely and I missed spending time with my dad. It seemed like Nina had it out for me and wanted him to start a new life with him and without me. She never even tried to bond with me. My dad would push for us to do girly things together, but Nina would always say she's too tired or say she already had plans. I got the hint and stopped involving myself with her. Because of this distance between us, my dad started to forget I existed. He would make dinner for the two of us and he got into the habit of only making portions for two. This meant that whenever he cooked, I would have to eat some leftovers or heat up some frozen food because Nina would always eat all of it. I've tried to talk to my dad about it, but he says I'm young and still trying to adjust to this life. I told him it's been 5 years already, I should be used to it by now, but things only get worse because Nina hates me. He tried to tell me that Nina was also struggling to adjust to having a daughter, so I should cut her some slack. Since then, I stopped confiding in my dad because he never took my problems seriously. I also had no other support to fall back on because we moved away from my grandparents when my dad married Nina. His family also didn't get along with Nina because I used to tell them how she treated me when we still lived close to them. This caused a lot of problems and we had to move away, which I'm still sad about to this day. I didn't know this for a while, but my dad and Nina were trying to have a child but couldn't. They kept this a secret from me, so right off the bat they weren't on to a good start. Then, they used a sperm donor because my dad found out he couldn't have any more kids. With that came along my half-brother Mark. Sharing my dad with Nina was already a lost cause and now I had to share him with a sibling too? It really felt like Nina was trying to keep me out of this family since she was really pushy on the two of them having kids. Seeing my dad felt like a miracle since Mark was born. We used to spend 2 days a week together without Nina, but he told me he couldn't do that anymore with a new baby in the house. He explained that he couldn't leave his wife alone for 2 days a week with a newborn. I was obviously very angry about it because Nina had taken so much away from me. I kept distancing myself from them and they didn't even bother to check up on me. I wasn't seeking attention, but they hadn't heard from me or seen me in nearly a week and my dad never asked about it. Well, 3 days ago, he finally talked to me, but it wasn't for the reason I wanted. I thought he was going to tell me he wanted to hang out with me like we used to or just have a nice conversation with me, but no. Him and Nina had decided to make a nursery for Mark instead of having him in their bedroom. I asked what was the problem with that and he said they just wanted their privacy. So, our home has 2 master bedrooms and 2 bedrooms on the other side of the house. Those 2 bedrooms are empty, so it was perfect for Mark, except Nina thought it was oh so difficult to go to the other side of the house multiple times at night when Mark woke up. I said that's why they should have him in their room, but my dad suggested something so much better. He wanted me to give up my master bedroom for this little baby. It wasn't up for negotiation either. He wanted me to pack my stuff up and move out of my room. I didn't even try to fight it because I had enough. I just said okay and started packing. I overheard him telling Nina that I had agreed and she got so happy. She started talking about how she would redecorate my room, rid the walls of the ugly paint color I had chosen, and just leave no trace of me ever being in that bedroom. I was pissed and called my uncle to come pick me up. When he came, I saw him talking to my dad and I just said, "You can give my room to your son now," and we left. He texted me that I could only stay for 1 night, but I told my uncle I needed as much time apart from them as possible. I explained the whole situation to him, how Nina hates me, my dad won't listen to me anymore, and this new kid is replacing me. He let me stay for nearly a week. In that time, I saw my grandparents and I also told them everything. They were not happy at all and called my dad to tell him how bad of a father he is, along with some other names. I heard my dad say he didn't trust their judgment because I'm obviously the favorite, so of course they're going to take my side. I was sad that was his whole takeaway on this whole thing. It wasn't just about taking my side. It's about how I've been neglected ever since Nina entered into our lives and he refuses to see that.
My coward wife abandoned our toddlers to fight for themselves against a burglar. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. Last week when I was at work, and my 2 oldest were at school, my wife was sitting at the dining room table when she saw a man walking down the driveway and going to the front door. He had what she thought was a hammer. She went to the front door and the guy was trying to get in. The guy saw her and waved, and tried to get in. She fled the house and ran out the back door. She left her cell phone and Apple Watch. She also left our twin girls, 8 months old. They were sleeping in their cribs. She ran through the neighborhood looking for someone to help her call police. Eventually she found someone and they called the police. The police responded and cleared the house. Turns out, it was a repair guy who was supposed to go to our neighbor's house and had been told that no one would be home and to just come in. She is mad at me for not being more supportive of her. I was stunned when she told me and was surprised when she said she left the girls. She is always yelling at me about how I don't do enough for the kids, unlike her who sacrifices constantly. I don't think that is accurate, but it is beside the point. We have been having major issues in our marriage for a long time apart from this. She is acting like this is one of the most traumatic events of her life. Which is making me madder and madder. I am having a real hard time putting this one behind me. If this guy had been a bad guy, she would have abandoned our girls to him also she could save herself. Our house isn't that big, and people in the neighborhood and online know we have 2 little girls. I honestly don't know what to do. Guys, what's the dumbest thing your girlfriend has ever done? I gifted my girlfriend my old pepper spray after I stopped working as a taxi driver. She got extremely excited by this gift. She felt this extreme empowerment by having it. Like she was invincible. As soon as she got it, she was outside testing it by spraying it on the ground to make sure it works. She used it twice and danced with glee, then we went back inside and that was that. Over the course of the next month, she kept that thing on her like it was her only lifeline to the world. I was honestly kind of flattered that she loved my little $20 gift so much. It comes with a breakaway attachment to a keychain that she had fixed to her keys. We went out downtown and some guy approached her when I was in the bathroom, and when I came out she was pointing it in his face like she's ready to end his retina's existence. It was extremely comical, until it wasn't. So last weekend we were in the car and had some friends with us. My girlfriend in the passenger seat, my friend directly behind her, his girlfriend next to him in the center, and some guy that was introduced to us by my friend, let's call him Steve, directly behind me. We were on our way to an event downtown and this dude Steve has a pretty big personality. You know, the type of guy that likes to put other people down to make himself feel better, or claims to be brutally honest. Well, my girlfriend has a bit of an explosive personality, and while she wasn't the target of his banter, she sure wouldn't put up with it. I was the target. This Steve guy was a fan of dark humor. He made a joke about my dead grandmother who I was extremely close with, and that was enough to set my girlfriend off. She pulled out that handy dandy pepper spray I gifted her and set that right off in his face. Well F. We are in a car on the freeway, windows rolled up, and pepper spray going off adjacently behind me. I appreciate her attempt to white knight for me, but when I tell you everyone in the car was a victim, including herself, to the sheer magnitude of stinging pain to my eyes. They immediately closed and I swerved off the side into the divider. Luckily I only grazed the divider wall, but we were all immediately out of the car, screaming, gasping, wiping our eyes. When I finally looked over at Steve, he was vomiting, beet red, and it literally looked like she dumped the can on his face. She's never getting a weapon again. I called my wife a manipulative piece of crap and now she's emotionally distant. My wife is incredibly emotional. Sad ad? Tears. Reading a book? Tears. Telling even a remotely sad story? Tears. She feels things very deeply and responds sometimes inappropriately with the amount of emotion she reacts with. I've tried to not have a problem with this as I know that's just her nature, but it can be overwhelming sometimes and it embarrasses me in front of my friends when my wife cries. About 3 months ago we happened to get into a huge fight. She was telling a story to some friends and exaggerating the story quite a bit, so I just said, hey, I think you're lying a bit here. That didn't really happen like that. I wasn't trying to take away from the story, but I hate liars and she does it a fair bit when storytelling. She told me that she just does it for comedic effect and that everyone knows she doesn't tell stories 100% accurately. It was still bothering me, however, after everyone went home and I brought it up again, to which she told me that we'd already talked about it, and she didn't need me to correct her in front of her friends. We essentially got into a fight and I raised my voice. She immediately started crying, more like sobbing, and I told her that she was being a manipulative piece of crap doing that. I told her that I was sick and tired of her emotions and how annoying her cries can be. I told her that every time I bring up something to take as a critique she begins crying, and it's a manipulative way to get me to stop talking about whatever's bothering me. I told her about the time I called her food disgusting and started explaining how I would cook it to taste well, and she started crying. I then threatened to lay hands on her if she didn't stop her manipulative cries. Not proud of that, but in my defense I didn't mean it, it was in the heat of the moment. My mom did the same thing to my dad, and I hate when women do that. She asked me through shuttered breathing if I really thought she was manipulative and I said yes. She flicked when I raised my hand right after, and I assured her I wouldn't hurt her, and that was just an empty threat. However, then I told her that she always manipulates the argument into going her way by crying and being the victim. She told me she couldn't even look at me and locked herself into our room to calm down. She came out a few hours later and told me that she was sorry if I thought she was being manipulative and that it wouldn't happen again. Problem solved, right? Except it's not at all. I didn't notice it immediately, but she started pulling away from me. She won't watch movies with me if there's any sad parts. She doesn't tell me the stories she used to. She won't tell stories to friends when I'm around, and now our friends don't want me to go out when they do because they say she's not fun when I'm there. She stopped reading books in the living room, stopped watching unpredictable TV shows. She won't even talk to her mom on the phone when I'm in the room. I feel like I'm living with a ghost now. It wasn't until yesterday that I even realized I haven't seen her cry since our fight. I brought it up last night and she told me that she didn't want to manipulate me anymore. I told her that her everyday crying wasn't manipulative, and she said, so it's only manipulative when you're mad at me. And now I don't know what to do.
I, 22F, asked my boyfriend, 41M, about his thoughts on the possibility of having a one-sided open relationship, and he broke up with me. Let me start by saying that our age gap is in the issue. My boyfriend is the best thing to happen to me in my adult life because of his age, not despite it. Over the 5 years we've been together, I've grown so much as a person thanks, in large part, to his gentle love and overwhelming support and maturity as he was able to guide me through the beginning of adulthood. None of my friends in long-term relationships have anything like what my boyfriend and I have, and they all say they wish they did. Also, he's more attractive and in better shape than all their boyfriends. So if your first reaction to this situation is that some dirty old man is taking advantage of a young naive girl, then you're wrong. Anyways, he is an administrative supervisor at my company. He trained me my first 2 weeks on the job when I first got hired, and we hit it off immediately because we have a lot of things in common. Nothing happened then, but I just couldn't stop thinking about him. So after about a month I stopped by his office after work and asked him out for coffee. 6 months later I moved in with him. That first year was the best time I've ever had in a relationship. We traveled, ate out, went to shows and movies. He taught me so much about life. He would really engage with me and listen to what I had to say. He also wasn't afraid to ask me those really tough questions that made me look at situations from another perspective. He taught me how to stand up for myself, and conflict resolution. The more time we spent together, the more I love him. Then the virus happened. My boyfriend is not perfect. One major problem is he is a micromanager when it comes to work, and a workaholic. As soon as lockdown started, he started working nonstop. Sometimes he would work 14 to 16 hours a day. From the end of April to the second week in June, he worked 36 days straight. He would come home, kiss me, work out, shower, and go to bed, just to get up the next morning and do it all over again. No one asks him to work like that, he just does. He says, I have to be an advocate for our team, and make sure they're in good hands. Due to his work ethic, I got really lonely during this time. I talked to him about it, and he cut back some of his work. He even started doing silly things like ordering cheesy decorations online, then decorating our dining room like a Chinese restaurant and ordering takeout from our favorite Chinese place so it would feel like we went out. It was fun and nice, but I was still lonely. Around this time, an old friend from high school contacted me through Facebook. We started talking first on a message, then we started texting. He was really there for me, and showed me a lot of attention. After a while he asked if I wanted to meet up for drinks. I said yes, since my boyfriend wasn't home. I ended up drinking more than I usually do. Before I knew it, we were kissing. I'm not going to lie, it felt really good. I did allow it to go too far, but I only gave him brain and no intimacy was had. I left and went home. I felt awful, not because I did it, but because I did it behind my boyfriend's back. The next day I asked my boyfriend if we could talk. I started out by telling him how lonely I felt for these past few months and how I wanted to ask his thoughts on an open relationship. He was actually really receptive. He sat down with me and asked several questions about our relationship, and how strong did I think it was. He listened as I explained that I loved him but needed attention that he can't provide right now. I wanted him, but I didn't feel like my needs were being met, and this would be an easy and safe way for me to get that attention I've been missing. He asked what brought this on, and I explained about my friend, and how I wasn't interested in a relationship with him, but I would like to go out with him just for some distraction from everything going on. I then also took the time to inform him that this would be a one-sided open relationship. I was not comfortable sharing him with any other woman. However, I explained to him how this is completely different with me. I don't work nearly as much as he does, I am alone a lot more, and need the connection from someone else way more than he does. Since he works all the time, he has no time to even look for partners. After I said all of this, he sat there for several minutes, and that's when I saw the hurt and pain in his eyes. It was until that moment I realized how selfish I had been. It was like someone poured ice water over me. I had not once thought about him in this entire situation. But before I could say a word he said, "You need to leave." I tried to talk more, but he said he was not in a place emotionally to communicate with me effectively, and that I needed to give him space. I just broke down crying. I had messed it all up, and hadn't even realized it till that moment. He left after that and asked me to leave before he got back. About 2 hours later, I got a text from him saying that we need some time apart, and he didn't feel like we needed to be in a relationship right now. That was 2 days ago. I'm at my parents' house now, and I can't eat or sleep. I'm a wreck. I know I'm a dumb idiot and a horrible person, but please, if you have any advice on how to fix this, please help. Am I the a-hole for expecting my husband to make an exception for me when I didn't make an exception for him? My husband thinks I'm a hypocrite for not cutting off my best friend who cheated on her husband multiple times. My husband and I have been married for 10 years. The only real argument we have ever had is the one we are having now. So, my best friend Cindy and her husband Mike are going through a nasty divorce, and it has caused a serious rift between my husband and I. I didn't realize how serious it was until this morning when he told me he was going to stay at his brother's house for the weekend. For context, 4 years ago my husband's best friend Alan was caught having an affair. I was friends with his wife Carol. We were not super close, but we'd get together for cocktails a few times a month, and occasionally we'd go on double dates. My husband told me that Alan had been unhappy for a while because Carol had stopped having intimacy with him. When I talked to Carol, she didn't deny this. She said that Alan had gained weight and she was no longer attracted to him. Alan was a chef and started sleeping with a female coworker 5 years younger than him. He was 35, she was 30. The affair lasted for some time before they were caught at work. It all came out, he was fired and Carol left him. I was there for Carol and the kids through it all. The divorce was ugly and costly. Suffice to say it would take Alan years to financially recover as Carol took him to the cleaners. Throughout the whole ordeal my husband still talked to Alan and would occasionally loan him money. The problem was I didn't want my husband to remain friends with him. I told my husband if he continues his friendship with Alan then we would have problems. After some back and forth, and me basically putting my foot down, he agreed to basically cut Alan out. We didn't need influences or people like that in our life. Alan was extremely upset when my husband told him they'd no longer be friends. They had grown up together. But I didn't want men like that in our life. Shortly after all this we were reflecting on everything. My husband said something that I never forgot. He said, "One day one of your friends will do something they regret and need you. I hope you have the same wherewithal to cut them out if I ask you to." Cut to the present and, you guessed it. My bestie Cindy cheated on her husband Mike. Mike worked in manufacturing and was laid off. He eventually went back to work, but at a much lower wage and money was tight for them. Cindy picked up a job working as a barista. As she tells it, one of her regulars was a younger guy in real estate who had an eye for her and was constantly asking her to get together. He would slip her $100 tips a few times a week. He knew she was married. Eventually Cindy gave in and started seeing this guy regularly on her days off while Mike was working. Because she had already started an affair with someone, she threw herself into the deep end and began seeing another guy on the side too. The guy in the restaurant who gave her tips was an emotional as well as physical affair, whereas the 3 other guys she was seeing were all strictly physical affairs. She told me she always felt guilty and knew it was wrong but couldn't stop herself. She said the intimacy with the guy from the restaurant was like she'd never experienced with Mike and she felt wanted and desired it again. They were caught when their oldest daughter came home early from school because she wasn't feeling well. Cindy was busy with her affair partner, didn't see the text from her daughter, and the daughter walked in on them. The daughter told Mike. Mike was devastated and they are getting a divorce. The family has basically ostracized Cindy and want nothing to do with her currently. I and a few friends have been her support through everything. I need to say that I recognize what she did is terrible. However, my husband has pounced on this opportunity and is demanding I cut contact with her completely. Just like I did with him 4 years ago. He says, "We don't need cheating cradle robbers in our lives." I explained that this is different and the issues between Mike and Cindy are more complicated and she feels genuine remorse and wants her family back. He says he doesn't care about the issues or how she feels and that he made a sacrifice for me years ago by cutting out one of his closest friends and I need to do the same for him. I told him I wasn't going to do that and that he was being petty and vengeful and he knows the situations are completely different. This morning he said he's heading to his brother's for the weekend. He said he feels betrayed. I honestly don't see how he feels this way.
My wife got a disrespectful tattoo, so I divorced her. My ex-wife, Anne, and I are in our mid-30s. We were married 3 years, together 5 years total. After our engagement party, Anne told me she wants to get matching tattoos. I told her I have nothing against tattoos, I just don't want one. After the wedding, she again asked to get matching tattoos. I said no again. I told her she can get a tattoo if she wanted but I'm not interested. She said it's something she wants to do as a couple and won't get one unless I get a matching one. I still refused but she brings it up again every 6 months or so and is more insistent every time. Recently she was promoted and transferred at her job. One of her new coworkers has several tattoos and she has spoken to him about it. He suggested I wasn't a man if I was scared to get a tattoo. She asked me if I was scared to get a tattoo. I said, "I'm not scared, there's just no reason to do it," then added, "I understand why your friend at work would insult my manhood. He's trying to get into your pants. But why would you throw his words in my face?" Her response was, "If the shoe fits." Then she got up, went to the bedroom, and slammed the door. That was when I began to suspect that she was sleeping with her coworker. I mean, why else would she start acting this cruelly out of nowhere? She didn't talk to me for 2 days. A few days later she told me she was going shopping. That evening she came home and showed me her new tattoo, 2 Chinese symbols on her forearm. She said they mean strength and independence. My ex-wife is white and does not speak Chinese, by the way. When I looked closer I saw there were English letters, JW, beneath the Chinese ones. I asked her about the initials. She was silent a while, took a deep breath, and said they were her co-worker's initials. He had taken her to his tattoo artist. He had suggested those particular Chinese characters. He stayed with her and lent support while she got inked. She wanted to honor that support in their friendship so she had his initials tattooed beneath the symbols. Controlling my anger, I told her that having another man's initials tattooed on her body was disrespectful to me and that she should have them removed. She said I was trying to control her, that I had said she could have a tattoo and I refused to share the tattoo experience with her. So she had chosen to share that experience with a friend who wasn't scared of a little needle. I sat there at a loss wondering how could she not see that it's disrespectful? We barely spoke the next few days and when we did the tattoo was always the subject. She said I should get over it and there's nothing wrong with having JW's initials tattooed on her arm. Finally, after weeks of fighting, I straight up asked if she was sleeping with JW. She hesitated, then said yes and actually sneered at me. "At least he's a real man," she said. The details of our breakup and divorce aren't important other than to say that it was not contested. The few times we spoke during the process, we were civil to each other. The day the divorce was finalized, I called and told her I finally had a good reason, so I got a tattoo. I said my tattoo also symbolizes strength and independence. My tattoo is the date our divorce was final. She was silent for a while, and when she began to cry I hung up and blocked her. My crazy religious mother thinks I'm a Satan worshiper. My mother divorced my father after finding him smoking grass. This was grounds for divorce to her. She also ended up getting custody of me, which meant hell on earth. I was 16 when I went to live with her, and in her religious house, I had no video games, no TV shows, but at least I was allowed a phone. Also, strictly no girls. She told me countless times that if she ever caught me with a girl she would make me regret it, and would point at a wooden paddle. Not like I could ever get girls anyway, I wasn't very attractive, and due to isolation enforced by my mother, had no friends or social skills. I attended a Catholic school and was very interested in girls. I also had a crush, a girl named Jenny. Her massive honkers were of interest to me. However, I had no hope as I was very unattractive. My face riddled with acne, my slim body and greasy hair, caused by my mother forbidding shampoo in the house. I tried asking Jenny out, via text, without my mom's knowledge. Jenny screenshotted this message. Unbeknownst to me, Jenny's mother was friends with my mother, and Jenny was also a religious nut. She showed her mom the message who showed mine. My mother laid the smack down on me with the wooden paddle. If you were to look at my backside only, you could easily mistake me for Michael Blackson. I never told anyone what happened, as I was scared by my mother. She also took my phone away for 3 months as punishment, and it so happened to be summer break. Nothing eventful happened in the 3 months and I got my phone back at the start of the year. When I came back, I noticed one of the boys in my class had gotten way more handsome, no homo, so I asked him how his face changed so much. He told me about a book with a skull on it which makes you more handsome, called Facial Gains. That had my attention. He also told me that this guide was digital, and I could easily hide it from my mother. This boy was one of the few people I could consider somewhat close. That night I bought my own copy of this guide. I started using it and my face started changing. My mother noticed and asked me about it, to which I claimed I didn't know what she was on about. Well, after using this book for a little while, the changes on my posture, my face, even physique were a little different. My mother kept asking me and was really pressing the issue, but I never told her. Well, then it happened. I came home from school one day to find her holding my phone, her eyes red with previously shed tears. I effing knew it, she shrieked. You're a Satanist. My son is a Satanist. I was shocked, no cursing was a strict rule in this house. Before I could ask her what this was about, she pulled out my phone and showed me she had found the digital guide. It's black, her voice wretched. With a skull on it. A skull. Oh God, please forgive my foolish son. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, a grown woman dropping to her knees and yelling at God for finding a book with a skull. And look at it, this is why you stand so straight now, why your jaw is so much sharper, why your whole demeanor has changed. You're straying. After everything I've done. In the middle of her rant, she suffered a panic attack and I had to call the hospital. She was taken away, and I came with her. Thankfully she was okay, but I made the decision to go stay with my older brother, who took me in. I thought this was the end of it, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Steal a toy from me in elementary? I'll steal 80,000 when you grow up. In the 3rd grade I was an awkward kid and had a mean drunk father, so I struggled to fit in and make friends and was bullied and shunned by other kids. One of my classmates, Derek, who regularly partook in bullying me, showed me kindness one day. Being deprived of kindness or attention so regularly I was putty in his hands. He hung out with me during recess when I was usually alone, we laughed and talked about girls we like, he even apologized for being an asshole to me. The reason he was nice to me was because I had brought a very popular, expensive Batman action figure to school with me to pass the time since I was alone mostly. I saved allowance and mowed lawns for 2 months to buy that toy. Everyone wanted one. By the end of the day he asked me if he could lend the action figure and like the naive, socially inept kid I trusted him with it. The deal was to return it the following morning. I went home so happy, completely fooled, I never suspected a thing. The following day he completely ignored me. When I tried to talk to him he acted like I was crazy. When I asked him to return the action figure he simply said, "You never gave me any Batman, maybe you imagined it," and when I persisted he threatened to beat my SS. When I complained to my teacher I was told that it was my own fault for bringing toys to school and I was afraid they would involve my father, so I dropped it. I couldn't let my father know or I would be called a pussy and have my SS beat and punished for the next 2 weeks. What's worse is that Derek told all the girls that I confided in him about fancying that I lusted after them and that I wanked to them. I was a social outcast before that, but at least I was tolerated. But after his smear campaign with the girls I was a leper and people wouldn't even look me in the eyes, not even the teachers. Kids started throwing stones at me, sabotaged and vandalized my property. It was hell. I did nothing about it but cry. I was just a weak-willed kid after all, but to this day I wish I bit someone's ear off or anything in retaliation. After a while the bullying died down and I focused on my studies and started getting good grades. Derek started talking to me again, but I ignored him completely. Sometimes he would repeat, "Why are you being such a baby? You didn't give me anything, you imagined it." By the end of the year we moved houses and I transferred to another school not far away. Things were much better there, I finally had friends and I was not as naive anymore, so I was not as easily targeted. But I was still mostly me and still got picked on now and then. Over the years I became somewhat of a delinquent and in high school I got into regular fights. I may have been overcompensating for the lack of a spine I had in my younger years. I bartended in nightclubs, hotels, and cruise liners in my early 20s. This helped me a lot to be more socially adept and to understand social dynamics and human nature. I finished trade school and qualified as an electrician and later as a plumber. I know, water and electricity, but believe it or not, I thought it was ingenious at the time. I started my own business, developed a reputation for excellent workmanship in my local area and did well for myself. When I was 29, I received a call out at 2 in the morning for a flooding emergency at a local residence. When I got there, the place was a mess. Water was jetting out of a burst pipe and electrical equipment was shorted. It was highly dangerous. The living room floor was caved in due to a sinkhole. I was met by the wife, let's call her Jane, hysterical and beside herself. She somehow thought that she was responsible, which I found odd. I assured her that it couldn't possibly be her fault. He arrived not 5 minutes later. His demeanor was irate. He didn't greet or shake my hand when I offered, and I recognized him immediately. Derek from all those years ago. He demanded to know why I have not begun fixing the issue yet. I was professional and told him what I'd told the wife in terms of costs, but I hid the written quote in my vehicle. I told him who I was and acted happy to see him, and assured him that he was in good hands. After a while of arguing with his wife, he seemed to calm down and joked around with me. I knew I had fooled him. Here's where my revenge began. What is the most heartbreaking thing your significant other has ever done? My husband and I were approached in public with a camera, and asked to rate ourselves and each other on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of physical attractiveness. Husband was asked first. He's extremely handsome. He rated himself an 8.5 and I enthusiastically rated him a 9.5. Then I was asked to rate myself. I gave myself a very honest 2.5 out of 10. I know what I look like and I know I am conventionally unattractive. Well, my poor husband. This really hurt him. He objected, and hyped me up during filming, but then he awkwardly pulled me aside and tried to find a private part of the street after they were done filming us. He was nearly crying. There we were in a public street, my sweet husband with tears in his eyes and holding my hands and cradling my face, saying that it broke his heart seeing me think of myself this way. I kept explaining that I don't hate myself and I don't have confidence issues, I just simply don't equate my self-worth to my appearance. I'm happy with who I am even though I am unattractive. But my husband kept objecting and saying how stimming and beautiful I am and how much he loves me. He asked me how I could love him if I don't love myself. He was just so sad and asked me, don't you feel beautiful and worthy when we make love? Don't you feel beautiful when you put on your cute clothes? We talked for a few minutes. I kept reassuring him I love him and I'm secure in our relationship and I don't have confidence issues. The rest of the night was awkward. Mood was dampened. We canceled our dinner reservations and just went home and showered separately. Didn't say much to each other. He went to sleep a couple hours ago, but here I'm still awake. Homophobic customer gets angry because his Pokemon cards arrived in a pink envelope. He only wants American flag colors because he's not gay. I have been selling Pokemon cards on eBay as a side job for a long time because the rush on Pokemon cards is a big thing. When I mail out my cards, I like to send them in different colored envelopes to stand out. The colors are red, blue, pink, green, and yellow. They are randomly picked and using different colors helps me remember who is what order. I have never gotten a complaint before and thought it was a great idea. So, when your letter arrives, it's a fun experience instead of just getting a plain white envelope. I had an order for a car that was randomly put in a pink envelope and mailed off to the buyer. About a week later, I got a message on eBay from the buyer asking me not to send him pink envelopes because pink is for girls, and he doesn't want his neighbors to see him carrying a pink letter. Another week goes by and I add more items to my eBay, so this person bought about 10 different cards from me. I don't remember him from all the other orders, so one of his packages gets sent in a pink envelope. I had a lot of orders that week and a lot of people got pink envelopes along with different colors. I'm also sure another one of his orders was sent in a blue one. He messages me again, furious that I have sent him another pink envelope. He informed me that he would not buy from me again if the next envelope was pink. His message also included, I don't want another pink letter. Only send me colors associated with the American flag, so only red and blues. If it's on the gay flag, I don't want it. Weird because the pride flag is a rainbow, but I digress. So about 2 weeks later he ordered 20 cards, which is over the weight limit for eBay standard card shipping, so I broke his order down into separate orders. The cards were bought in different orders of 5, so it was easy to do. I had to buy 3 get 2 free. I decided I didn't want this person to go without his pink envelopes any longer, so I sent him 5 separate pink letters for his cards. Now, where I think I was being the a-hole was while talking to my girlfriend. She defended him, saying he could have been in the closet, and you exposed him to his family. I tried to show her the messages where I don't think that is the case. So she changed it too. He doesn't want to be made fun of by his neighbors and now he will. But now I feel bad that he did ask to not get them sent anymore, but I decided to be petty. So am I an a-hole? Update, this took its weirdest turn. I honestly did not see it coming. The guy finally got all his pink envelopes in the mail and decided to complain to eBay about how I was being aggressive and forcing pink envelopes on him. The eBay team contacted me and wanted to either give him a refund or just return the item. I told them if he wants to return the latest items, I would be happy to take them back. They informed this person that I was willing to accept the return. This man never returned the cards but claimed he did and wanted a refund. Because there was no shipping information, nor did I ever receive a package, I did not have to return the money. He then messages me about how I am not only ripping him off but also shoving the, and I quote, gay agenda down his throat. He even sent pictures of him burning the pink envelopes in his fire pit while sitting in a lawn chair with an American flag in his hand. There were multiple pictures of how American he was. Now I read every single reply to this post, and while I agree I was being petty, I cannot let this go without being petty right back. So, I found every order he placed and tallied it up to an exact amount. I would say approximately $30. I looked online for the LGBTQ+ charities and nonprofits near me or online to donate to. I donated his entire amount to one of them under my name. But I changed the name in the document too. His first name, and sent him a picture of the donation. I hid it within the message letting him know I never received his return of these items, with pictures of the pick list I printed out and the donation slip being the last one I uploaded. I have not heard from him since, and I have blocked him from purchasing from me again. A lot of you have asked about why my girlfriend took his side, and a lot of you said that was not very healthy. We had a big argument about how she is taking not only a stranger's side but a homophobic one at that. Come to find out, she did not care about this person but just wanted a justified reason to leave me for her coworker. So that was a twist I was not prepared for.
My husband sided with my former high school bullies and publicly humiliated me. My husband, 32 male, and I, 29 female, flew out to our hometown and spent Thanksgiving with family. Everything went well. Friday, we decided to spend the day going out in our hometown and checking out new things since it's been years since our last visit. We stopped by a quick noodle restaurant for lunch. Guess who's eating in there? A few of the female bullies that ruined my life in high school. Brief backstory: my husband was friends with most of the people in school, including the popular crowd that bullied me. He knew they bullied people, but didn't know the extent of their bullying. I was an outcast with a small circle of fellow outcast friends. My husband and I didn't know each other back then. The bullying was so bad, they had me jumped and resulted in me having broken bones, that my parents pulled me out for homeschooling. Never got to go to homecoming, never got to go to prom, etc. I'm still in therapy and physical therapy for the things they did to me. My husband was also friends with some of my fellow friends, but we never formally met until years later. He moved away shortly after high school and I moved back to our home state right before meeting my husband. Think invisible string theory. He wanted to talk to them immediately. I told him I was uncomfortable going over to them and reminded him what they did to me, but he insisted and pressured me to go. They squealed when they saw him, leapt out of their chairs, and jumped all over him. I awkwardly waved and said hi to them. They immediately changed their attitude and were not happy to see me. They asked, "Why are you here and why are you following our friend?" I asked my husband if he could take over the conversation, but he refused, so I told them that my husband and I are here for Thanksgiving weekend. They made a snide remark, "Oh, well, where is he? Is he the dirty stinky fat man with the receding hairline over there? Even he wouldn't marry you. You're probably making him up." I didn't want to entertain this, so I asked my husband if we could go. He refused and said I was being rude. These girls were insulting me right in front of him and he had zero interest in defending me. He's never done this before. So I told him I'm going to order for us and walked away. They made nasty comments about me as I was leaving. I got our drinks and asked him, yet again, if we could find a table elsewhere. The girl said, "Why do you keep stalking him? He doesn't want anything to do with you. Go away, you stupid little troll." So I told him I'm getting my food to go because I don't want to spend another minute here. He said to the girls, "Oh. Guess what she said about you," as we walked in. Then he proceeds to tell them about me, reminding him about the heinous things they did to me. They of course denied they did any of that, then swore I did those things to them. He said I was vile to torment his friends back in high school. I said, "I can't believe that you're acting like this, so I guess I'll see you later." Luckily the counterperson witnessed everything that just happened and boxed up my food for me, along with utensils and napkins. I thanked her, gave her a tip, and headed for the exit. As I approached the exit, he blocks me from leaving. He immediately said, "Give me the ring back." I asked if he's serious. He asked yet again, "Give me the ring back now." I said no. He asked again and I asked him to let me leave. These girls are standing around laughing like hyenas at this point. A few people from the restaurant helped me get out of the restaurant. They returned to their table and I ran out in tears. I called my sister and begged her to pick me up. I walked as far as I could so they wouldn't attempt to bully me again. After telling her about what happened, we decided to get all of my belongings out of our hotel room and have me stay at her place and change my flight to an earlier time. My husband made zero attempts to contact me since the restaurant incident. My sister did some digging on Facebook and she saw the bullies tagging my husband in many photos. They were all over him in every photo, along with others from our old high school. Of course they went to the bar that the alumni always hang out and work at. I felt sick to my stomach looking at all of those photos. My husband knocked on my sister's door in the middle of the night after I finally fell asleep after crying myself to sleep. He asked if he could speak to me and that he messed up and needs to fix things. She sent him away. I woke up to missed calls and texts. I answered his call, asking him to give me space for the remainder of the trip and please respect my wishes. He said that I'm being dramatic and need to just listen to him. I got home on Tuesday. I made the impulsive decision to take temporary residence in our guest room an hour before he got home and somehow got most of my clothes, makeup and hair products, toiletries, etc. So I have zero reason to go back into the master bedroom. He got home late last night. I wasn't supposed to go back to work until next week, but I make my own schedule, so I decided to return today. I was hoping to avoid him this morning, but we crossed paths on my way out the door. He tried to hug me, but I rejected his advances and ran out the door. He yelled, "You can't avoid this forever," as I was heading to my car. He is right, I can't keep avoiding him forever. Him and I have never had any issues before the incident at the noodle restaurant. I don't know what to do. Our marriage has been perfect before this. No red flags at all. He was the only person I felt safe and secure with before the incident. The trust is completely gone and I no longer feel safe and secure with him. I don't think he will hurt me or anything, but I cannot trust him to protect me and stand by me. What should I do? How would you handle this? Therapy? Divorce? Break? I don't know. I still love him so much, but I don't know if I should trust my current judgment. I really need guidance on how to navigate this.
Guys, what's the dumbest thing your girlfriend has ever done? I gifted my girlfriend my old pepper spray after I stopped working as a taxi driver. She got extremely excited by this gift. She felt this extreme empowerment by having it. Like she was invincible. As soon as she got it, she was outside testing it by spraying it on the ground to make sure it works. She used it twice and danced with glee, then we went back inside and that was that. Over the course of the next month, she kept that thing on her like it was her only lifeline to the world. I was honestly kind of flattered that she loved my little $20 gift so much. It comes with a breakaway attachment to a keychain that she had fixed to her keys. We went out downtown and some guy approached her when I was in the bathroom, and when I came out she was pointing it in his face like she's ready to end his retina's existence. It was extremely comical, until it wasn't. So last weekend we were in the car and had some friends with us. My girlfriend in the passenger seat, my friend directly behind her, his girlfriend next to him in the center, and some guy that was introduced to us by my friend, let's call him Steve, directly behind me. We were on our way to an event downtown and this dude Steve has a pretty big personality. You know, the type of guy that likes to put other people down to make himself feel better, or claims to be brutally honest. Well, my girlfriend has a bit of an explosive personality, and while she wasn't the target of his banter, she sure wouldn't put up with it. I was the target. This Steve guy was a fan of dark humor. He made a joke about my dead grandmother who I was extremely close with, and that was enough to set my girlfriend off. She pulled out that handy dandy pepper spray I gifted her and set that right off in his face. Well F. We are in a car on the freeway, windows rolled up, and pepper spray going off adjacently behind me. I appreciate her attempt to white knight for me, but when I tell you everyone in the car was a victim, including herself, to the sheer magnitude of stinging pain to my eyes. They immediately closed and I swerved off the side into the divider. Luckily I only grazed the divider wall, but we were all immediately out of the car, screaming, gasping, wiping our eyes. When I finally looked over at Steve, he was vomiting, beet red, and it literally looked like she dumped the can on his face. She's never getting a weapon again.
My narcissistic mom wants me to take care of my disabled sister for the rest of my life. When I refused, she abused me even more. My childhood was immediately destroyed when my mom cheated on my dad and got pregnant. They got divorced as soon as my dad found out, and the affair baby, my sister, was born. I was 7 when all of this happened, so it's messed me up a lot. It didn't help that my mom somehow managed to get full custody of me. She played dirty and brought up past issues my dad used to have, like his substance abuse problem he had before I was even born. She argued that he was unfit to parent me by himself, and the judges agreed. To this day, my mom is still smug that she was able to pull one over on my dad, but he doesn't say anything bad about my mom. Growing up, she wanted me to hate him as much as she hated him, so she always badmouthed him to me, saying that there was nothing he could do right and he regrets ever marrying him. It's why she cheated. I tell my dad, but he says legally, he can't do anything about it and I just have to work with it and wait until I'm 18. I barely get to see my dad at all and I'm suffocated by mom. Since I'm older than my sister, my mom has me be her babysitter. I wouldn't complain as much if she wasn't profoundly disabled to the point where she requires assistance for everything. She's basically useless, and I will admit, I do resent her. Ever since she was born, all my time outside of school has been dedicated to her. I stopped learning the piano, going to my friend's house, and playing basketball because I had to help her. I have been wearing the same clothes at home for the past 3 years since my sister has priority over everything. I could never eat unless she was eating too. She caught on to this and purposely starved herself for a whole day, and when I told my mom, she said I had to suck it up. It was even worse because I was on my period and my cramps were acting up. My dad used to pay a lot more child support than required for the first 2 years after the divorce, but 90% of the money went to my sister, so he stopped and started paying the minimum. Still only 10% goes to me. I don't blame him for this because I don't think he should support an affair baby. Besides, he's been doing any legal proceedings he can to help me. He tried to take my mom to court about not using the child support correctly, but it was unsuccessful. Only in the past 3 months have I managed to get a bit of time to myself without having to take care of the affair child when I'm not at school. I can't keep living like this, so I applied to colleges far away from my mom and her affair child. I made sure to collect my college letters before my mom saw them, but I missed one and she went ballistic on me. She yelled that I was never going to college, especially not ones out of state. I said I wanted to pursue a career and study, but she laughed and said my job was taking care of my sister. She kept talking about me never leaving home because my sister needed me. I told her that was her job since she was the mom, and she slapped me across the cheek. She told me the only thing I was good for was taking care of my sister, so I should give up on going to college or moving out because they were never going to happen. She then grounded me and sent me up to my room without food or water for the rest of the day. I called my dad to tell him what happened, and he said he was going to do anything in his power to get me out of here. The courts may have denied him full custody, but he was still my dad, and the fact my mom hit me could be used as proof against a police officer or a judge. Update: I'm free. It took a long time, but my dad got me out of there. Now I can really live my life. I take so much money from my son's paycheck that he can't afford food. My son turned 18 in March. I've always taken out a percentage of his pay to put aside for his college fund, as well as pamper myself sometimes with some of the money I take out. He does not know about the pampering, but the college fund is something my son has known about since he started working at 15, and he didn't have any issues with it. To teach him to budget by experience, with the safety net of me and his mom still being around, since he's turned 18 I've put him in charge of paying for his own food. I have also started taking out more money, and I usually leave him with enough to barely scrape by in terms of food, so he can understand what it's like to budget. The extra money that I now take out is usually used for mostly the college fund, but also sometimes to treat myself and my boyfriend to a dinner date, as we both work very hard and deserve it. Once again, he doesn't know about the dinners, but I don't think it's a big deal. Me taking more of my son's money was working fine, no complaints from him, but the other day we got into a big argument over it. It started with me finding him really intoxicated when he got home. I asked him why he'd been drinking, and he said he always drank a beer after work, but today he bought 2 bottles since they were on sale. I asked him why he was spending his money on booze when he should be budgeting it for his food. He got kind of annoyed and said he only has enough money to buy himself bread and butter for breakfast due to how much I'm taking out of his paychecks, and since beer is super cheap at the corner store he just drinks it after work to get some calories in. He has been getting a lot skinnier recently too. I get he doesn't make that much money, but I doubt it's so little he can't pay for 3 flimsy cheap meals a day. I told him he needs to start budgeting better, and he said I need to stop stealing his money. I reminded him the money isn't going to me, well, some of it is, he just doesn't need to know that, but most of the money is literally going to be his money when he goes to college. He got all snarky and said, "Oh, maybe I don't want to go to college, maybe I want to eat." I should have just let the conversation go, but we just got into a huge argument over whether he should have the money or not. My cheap boyfriend decided he doesn't have to pay his half of the rent anymore, and all the money he makes is his, but the little money I make goes to all our living expenses. My boyfriend and I met when I was 19 in my sophomore year of college and he was 26. I was a full-time student, so I didn't have a job, and this has caused a lot of resentment issues with my boyfriend. When we first started seeing each other more, I would spend a lot of time at his apartment. Even though I couldn't help him out financially, since he had a job at the time, I helped where I could, buy lunch, coffee, help clean his apartment, and I had a monthly stipend I could spend in the university store, so I'd use that to help him out with groceries. I think I did my fair share at the time. I graduated last May, but I started working part-time when I was 21. It wasn't much at the time, but it was all I could do. However, my boyfriend feels that because I wasn't working for the first 2 years of our relationship and I am now, he shouldn't have to pay for anything for a while. He thinks the financial situation should balance out. He hasn't even had a steady job in months. He hops around jobs a lot, meaning he'll be a bartender for a while, then get bored of that, so he will work in retail or food for a few months, and go back to bartending. He seems to have a new job every 6 to 7 months. He's able to find work easily because he's so charismatic, but he'll eventually get bored and will want to do something different. Now that we're living together, he no longer pays his half of the rent. But not paying rent wasn't enough to balance things out for him, so he only buys groceries for us once or twice a month, which is usually just milk, beer and steaks. This has been going on for about 4 months now, or about $2,000 in rent. I can barely afford this, so I took a second job helping an old professor out. She's paying me very well and it's helping me make ends meet. But the situation gets worse. Not only is he not paying for anything, all the cleaning, cooking, apartment maintenance, driving, planning, date nights, etc. all fall on me. This makes me feel like I'm both the girlfriend and the boyfriend, because I do everything. But I also feel like his mom because he makes a mess of the apartment, leaving trash on the ground, not cleaning up his spills on the counter, leaving dirty dishes out, and I end up cleaning it up. At first, it was just me keeping the apartment clean, but now it feels like such a chore because he never does it. I usually ask him to clean it up, but I've waited up to 7 days before I relent and can't stand the sight of the mess he's made, and then clean it up myself. Just a few weeks ago, he spilled a large amount of syrup on the kitchen counter, didn't clean it up, and it sat there for about a week. It was incredibly sticky, gross, and attracted tons of bugs, but even after all that, he still didn't clean it up. I even laid out a sponge and some cleaning spray next to it. Eventually, I got sick and tired of it, and cleaned it up myself, like usual. I'll ask him to do simple chores while I'm out at work, like take the garbage out. It's a 2-minute walk to the dumpster in our apartment, and he'll agree to do it. But when I come home from work, it will still be there. I asked him to take it out the next day and he said he'll do it, but he doesn't, and then he gets angry when I tell him yet again. This keeps up until the garbage is fucking disgusting, it's leaking and smells bad. I have asthma and garbage fumes can sometimes make me wheeze, so I end up having to take out the garbage even though he agreed multiple times to do it. There was even one time where the garbage pile grew to about 3 bags, it smelled terrible, everything was leaking, and it was probably a hazard. When we're not fighting over the garbage, we're fighting over the thermostat. Sometimes I think he purposely does things to make the bills higher than they should be. We've been having weird weather in my region, so it's been going back and forth from cold to warm. He's turning the AC to low temperatures when it's warm, and turning the heat way up when it's cold. I'll ask him, repeatedly, to keep the thermostat at a reasonable temp to save money, and he acts like I'm giving him such an impossible task. He usually responds by saying that our bills are never that high and he wants to be comfortable temperature-wise, which is apparently either Arctic or magma. He'll also take advantage of my kindness. Money is tight right now, but I still want to go outside and try to frugally have fun. I tried planning a date night for Valentine's Day at a chain restaurant within walking distance of our apartment. I told him that we can go out, but only if we just stick to an appetizer or an entree under $12, and only have 1 or 2 of the beer special that night. He ended up complaining that it should be more romantic, we should have gone to a nicer place, that we shouldn't have to stick to such a low-value venue. I said I was sorry, but I couldn't afford anything nice, because of him. He ends up getting an appetizer, the most expensive entree, several top-shelf lids and a dessert. I just had an appetizer and 1 beer. When the check came, it was more than I could afford. I asked him to help out, he gave me about $20 and told me I had to get the rest. I used the little cash I had on me and my card to pay for it all. Every time I bring up the money issue, he always goes back to the point that when we first started to date he paid for almost everything and that it's only fair that he doesn't have to pay for anything now. Is this right? I know he did pay for a lot the first 2 years we were together, but that didn't include him paying for my rent, utilities, groceries, etc. And at the time, I was a college student. Now I'm 23 and he's 30, so he can't be basing these financial decisions on a period of time where I was a broke college student and he was a working adult. He's even lied about smoking in the bathroom even though all the evidence points to him smoking in there. He knows I'm an asthmatic, so it's now hard for me to breathe in the bathroom. Instead of owning up to his addiction, he gaslights me into thinking that the bathroom walls have always been painted a light yellow. They weren't. The straw that broke the camel's back was our most recent argument. We were talking about our future wedding because 2 friends of mine got married a few months ago. We started to talk about how nice their wedding was and how they were able to pay for it. He told me, "You know, the bride's parents traditionally pay for everything." The comment blew me away. I responded with, "That may be traditional, but it's not common anymore. My parents can't afford a wedding. My friends paid for most of their wedding, and their parents chipped in." He got mad at this statement and said his mom isn't going to pay for our wedding, and that the cost should be on my and my parents' shoulders to bear. He's always bringing up the fact he paid for everything when we started dating, but I feel like it's balanced now. He's been living for free, eating for free, using water and electricity for free, hasn't had to drive us anywhere, and he's had my free maid service and chef service for 4 months now. Everything was great before he decided to hold this financial crap over my head like this. We rarely fought until he felt the need to not pay for anything. And it's not like he's unemployed, so he physically cannot pay for anything. I've literally visited him multiple times while he's working. I felt emotionally drained and physically exhausted since all of this has happened. Edit, I'm going to plan an escape, so to speak. I feel that simply saying we're done to him won't work. I've already talked to my parents and they've agreed to let me live with them for a while. This isn't ideal, but it will allow me to save up money. I lied to my future ex-boyfriend about why I'm going to stay with my parents because I'm afraid that if he knew the real reason he wouldn't let me leave. Am I the a-hole for not caring if my husband cheated on me? I have a very strong opinion that if my significant other wants to cheat, I won't stop them. If they need to be stopped, they're not worth my love. I deeply believe I deserve someone who 100% willingly wants to be with me and wouldn't fall for temptation. Let's say it falls under my responsibility to try and stop them if I knew they're going to cheat, but what about if I didn't know? I'm married. We have been together for 4 years and married for 6 months. We just moved to a new apartment and little by little we have been renovating it. We're both crafty and we want to create our dream home. We became friends with our neighbors. Also a couple. The woman is very beautiful and bubbly and I got along very well with her. She said she envied us renovating since her husband doesn't really like these things and refuses to give her money to start her own projects. She's a stay-at-home mom. I don't know about her situation with her husband, but the closer we got to them, the more I sensed that he's very careful with money. I get what she means, although I don't think he is financially abusive. Both my husband and I work. My husband works a lot from home. I have noticed that my neighbor is getting more and more friendly with my husband, instead of how it started as a friendship with me. She is very flirty and she seems to have more and more in common with my husband, especially the things I don't really like hiking, but even the smallest things like food or sweets. She has so much in common with him, as she has put it many times. Since she's a stay-at-home mom, she started making my husband his favorite food, and my husband has said on many occasions how nice it is that she cooks. Twice I came home and she's in there with my husband, helping him with the renovations, or has just brought him lunch. My husband doesn't seem bothered at all, so it makes me think nothing is happening between them, yet. I was telling this to my mom and she got so angry at my indifference. She said that I should ban my neighbor from being around my husband and tell him not to talk to her again. I told her that I wanted a husband who doesn't want to cheat. There are 4 billion women out there and I can't stop him from seeing all of them. He's the only one who can decide if his marriage is worth it. My mom called me deranged and she is very upset with me. I don't know what to do. I have made my opinion clear to my husband that I didn't appreciate our neighbor hanging around with him, and I even started to cook more at home. Other than that, I don't plan on having a contest with women to win my husband. I always believe if they can take him, they can keep him. My heart is full of love for him and I can't even imagine myself cheating on him even if I was in a room full of handsome men. I just want the same in return. He hasn't done anything yet, but he has texted with her a few times. Nothing flirty, but they have texted. I hate it, but I don't know. My mom said I'm enabling this just to see if he cheats and then discard him, but all I wish is that he chooses me.
I canceled the entire vacation when I found out that my stepdaughters deliberately hid my daughter's passport to get her to stay home. I've been married to my wife Beth for 5 years. I have a bio daughter named Jessica. And I also have 2 stepdaughters named Monica and Leah. They're 25 and 28. Both are single moms and live with us currently. There's been issues about my stepdaughters asking my daughter to babysit the kids. Jessica didn't have a problem with it at first since this is what she does to earn money, but since her stepsisters don't pay her much, she just refused to babysit. We worked this out by having my wife take care of paying for the babysitting. I planned a family vacation for 3 days and everyone wanted to go. However, both Monica and Leah suggested that Jessica stay home and watch the kids since Beth doesn't want her grandkids to come. They said it's because the kids are used to Jessica and hiring another babysitter would cause issues. And also said that Jessica isn't too fond of our destination, but it was obvious that Jessica wanted to go. They insisted and Beth offered to pay her double, and there was just a lot of back and forth on this till I demanded they stop bringing it up. We were supposed to go last week, but when everybody had packed their bags and it was time to go, Jessica found out that she didn't have her passport on her. We searched her bag, then went home and searched there. Beth and my stepdaughters kept insisting that we go back to the airport or else we'd miss our flight. They insisted that Jessica stay at home with the kids. They even told the new babysitter to go home because she was no longer needed. I refused to go and kept searching for the passport till Monica admitted that she helped Leah hide Jessica's passport to get her to stay home with the kids. I was livid. I tried to get her to tell me where it was, but she said Leah had it. Leah denied it, so I threatened to cancel the vacation. That's when they gave it back. I decided to actually cancel the vacation and blew up at both of them and berated them. They stayed upstairs for a while and Beth refused to speak to me and said that I punished my stepdaughters for worrying about their kids and wanting them to stay with someone they know. I got told I overreacted and ruined the trip for everybody. My idiot wife got arrested for stalking our own daughter. I warned her not to, so all I could say when she was arrested was, "I told you so." Me and my wife have a 23-year-old daughter. She has a good job and lives in a house in the suburbs. She has been renting a house since she got a job. Our daughter doesn't really tell us about her social or love life. Even when we ask, she just gives us vague answers. My wife hates this. She feels like she is entitled to know about our daughter's private life, i.e., her social life, work life, love life, intimate life, etc. It turns out that for about 6 months, our daughter has been seeing a 43-year-old man. I don't know if they are dating or friends with benefits. I'm not sure, but my wife found this out when she was helping our daughter move into her house. She had gotten a copy of her key, so when my wife wants, she can go into her house, and she doesn't need to call our daughter to let her know, she can just walk in. At first, I didn't know about the key, but when I found out, I was in shock. My wife found out about my daughter dating the older guy by secretly following my daughter around to see where she goes and tracking her phone. She followed them back to her house, and she demanded to know what was going on. However, my daughter told her to leave. She refused, and my daughter said if she didn't leave, she would call the police. She left, came home, and told me everything. Obviously, I don't want my daughter to date a man who's 20 years older than her. I think it's gross, but I also think that what my wife did was wrong and an invasion of privacy. However, my wife told me that she's her mother, and because she's only 23, our daughter's business is also her business. I told my wife that our daughter is an adult and lives on her own. If she wants to do this, we may not agree with it, but there is nothing we can do. My wife didn't agree and said, "No, that doesn't mean she can date an older man if she wants." I didn't want to fight with my wife over this, so I just said, "Okay." My wife continued to stalk her and enter her house without asking, and she also stalked and threatened to injure the older man because of this. Because of this, my daughter called the police, and when I told the cops about the situation, they understood it to some extent and gave my wife a warning. They told us what she did was stalking and harassment, and that we needed to leave our daughter alone if she called them again. They would have to arrest my wife. After this, my daughter continued to harass our daughter and her boyfriend. She showed up on her dates at her house. My daughter then got a restraining order against her mother. I told my wife she needed to stop. All she was doing was making her want to be with a man even more. I told my wife she was breaking the law and that if she continued this, she might go to jail. She asked me if we should give her an ultimatum. Her idea was to tell her that if she continued to see the man, we would never talk to her again, and she wouldn't be a part of our family. My wife said our daughter could be part of our family after she broke up with him. I told her this wasn't a good idea because if he is abusive, we shouldn't push her away, we should still keep a line of communication open, and I told her we shouldn't use our parental influence to try and force her into doing what she does or doesn't want to do. After I told my wife that, she said, "So we should just allow our daughter to do whatever she wants, and we should just accept that?" I got frustrated, and I just said whatever and left. I texted my daughter, asking her if I could see her. She said okay, and we met for lunch. I asked her why she was seeing a man old enough to be her father, and she told me she was just into much older men. I tried telling her about the red flags of dating someone older, but she still wanted to do it. I told her that I didn't agree with the relationship, but I would support her and be there for her if she needed it. My daughter said, "Thank you." After that, I told my wife about the meeting with our daughter, and my wife got mad at me for doing that. She said, "We are supposed to have a united front." I told her there was nothing we could do except be there for her, but my wife is still adamant about doing something. I told her our daughter got a restraining order against her. If she keeps this up, she will go to jail. I tried telling her that, and the cops who came by our house tried telling her that, but she still didn't listen. She went to my daughter's house and basically broke in and yelled at our daughter, telling her, "Better end this relationship now. I don't care what you want or what you are into." Because of the yelling, one of our neighbors called the police, and my daughter told the cops everything. The cops asked if my daughter wanted to press charges, and she did, so my wife was arrested. She was charged with violating a restraining order, breaking and entering, assault, and harassment. I paid my wife's bail, but she still has a trial. My wife claimed that the cops were racist for arresting her. We are a black family. I got frustrated, and I told her no. She was arrested for breaking multiple laws. I told her she should have lied to me and wouldn't be in this situation, but she got mad at me. She told me our daughter disrespected her, and she is tired of the disrespect. She also said it was wrong of me to tell her it was her fault. Also, I told her that it was a little hypocritical of her to claim she doesn't like our daughter's disrespect, even though she constantly disrespects her parents all the time. For example, when we go to their house to stay there for a holiday or just visit, my wife will yell at them and cuss them out sometimes. She told me that was different because she's in her 40s and our daughter is barely in her 20s, so our daughter has to respect us. My wife also got mad at me. For telling her it was her fault she got arrested. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife her getting arrested was her fault?
I'm finding out my girlfriend of 1 year is deaf as I'm on the bus on my way to see her for the first time. I met her in a match of League of Legends 2 years ago. We talked a lot, became really close and basically started dating 1 year ago. We send each other pictures all the time and videos as well, so I never understood her apprehension to FaceTime me. We tell each other everything, I mean everything. She's presented me her parents and I know all her family. Today I was gonna surprise her by visiting for the first time. I talked with her sister to make sure it was okay. Less than 30 minutes ago I get a text from her, and am copy-pasting a translated version. "Hey love, you are so sweet and beautiful and you deserve so much better. I know you are coming because S told me. I'm sorry to ruin your surprise, it's just I'd hate to see your face when you find out. I know we promised to always be truthful, but I've been lying to you all this time." That was her first paragraph and I was crapping myself cause I thought she was breaking up with me, but then she continued, "You are too caring to ask why I never speak, why I never sent you a voice note. You are just too perfect and there's no way you'd be with me if you knew. The reason is very simple, I was born deaf. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. I'm just a coward for not telling you sooner. I'll understand if you don't want to be with me anymore. Holy hell, I was expecting something totally different and now I'm scared cause I've never interacted with a deaf person and I want to make sure she gets that I love her either way. I'm still in disbelief that she thought it a deal breaker for me. La concha de la Laura, I'm scared and needed to let it all out.